Hello and welcome to our Cambridge IGCSE First Language English webinar. I'm Jane Sly from Cambridge University Press and Assessment. I'll introduce you to obviously me that's talking. We have Jo Nice, who was our Senior Development Manager for the Cambridge IGCSE First Language English syllabuses. We have Julia Fusey, who's our Commissioning Editor for the new 6th edition coursebook, workbook and teacher's resource that you'll be seeing later. I'm also really pleased to have one of our authors, Helen Rees-Bidder, who will take you through the highlights from the new 6th edition and how these will fully support you in your classroom. Okay, agenda. We'll start off with Jo talking about changes to the syllabus and why these have been made. We'll then have a very short Q&A session to answer syllabus-related questions you have asked us in the chat. You can still ask questions about the syllabus after this short Q&A session. We can pick those up at the end because we have another one. Julia will take us through support we provide on the School Support Hub, signpost you where to find professional development and training support, and introduce the 6th edition. And then before the final Q&A, Helen will take us through the new resources. So that's the end of our introduction. Let me now hand over to Jo to hear about what's changed in the syllabuses.
Hello, thanks, Jane. Hi, I'm Jo Nice, and I'm going to talk through the syllabus changes. So on the next slide, you can see, so First Language English has been reviewed as part of our regular review of syllabuses, and updates made to the syllabus will be for first assessment in 2027. Now, I'll go through the details shortly, but we've not made major changes to the syllabus. So we haven't made changes to the syllabus content or the focus of what's being assessed. So our changes have focused on helping with teaching and learning and improving the candidate experience in the exam room by helping them to navigate the question paper effectively and efficiently on the time given. So on the next slide, you can see the redevelopment timeline here. So in September 2024, we published the syllabus, specimen question papers and mark schemes on the Cambridge Public website and on the School Support Hub. The School Support Hub, which you'll hear about later on, also includes lots of resources such as schemes of work, the coursework handbook, speaking and listening handbooks, and skills building resources. And specimen paper answers, which demonstrate and model answers with examiner commentary, will be published this year, and that will be followed by further support after first assessment in 2027. On the next slide, we're just highlighting, so at the beginning of a syllabus development, we consult with all of our teachers who teach the First Language English syllabus, and you will have taken part in this consultation. It's just some comments, some positive comments we received from our teachers about the current syllabus. And it's really important that we look at all of that feedback and it feeds into the changes that we make to any syllabus. On the next slide is an overview of the key changes for 2027, and I will go into some more detail. So the syllabus content, as I said, no major changes to the syllabus content. It's been reworded for clarity, and we've updated the command words in the syllabus. For the assessment, you'll see in the syllabus that we have updated the wording of the syllabus aims, and we've added in new learner attributes. We've updated wording of assessment objectives, but the knowledge and skills assessed have not changed. And we've changed some tasks in the question papers, and I'll go through those with you now. On the next slide, I just want to show you that this is the overview of the syllabus structure. As you can see, this will be very familiar to you because we haven't changed this. So paper 1 is reading, and candidates then either take paper 2, which is the directed writing and composition, or they take component 3, the coursework. And candidates still have the option to take the optional and separately endorsed component 4, which is a speaking and listening test. On the next slide is just an overview of details of changes to the components, and this is a summary. You'll be sent these slides, as Jane mentioned, later on, so I'm not going to read through every single thing on the slide because you can look at this in more detail later, but here's just a handy summary of what has changed in the syllabus for 2027. We're going to start by looking at paper 1 in more detail. So text A, so the paper 1 is reading, and you'll see that there's still 3 reading texts within that paper. Text A, candidates will still respond with a series of comprehension questions. Text B is the summary task, and there's a new short answer question in that task, which I will show you in more detail shortly. Text C, candidates still respond to this text, with short answer questions and a language task. And this is the text that candidates also do the extended response to reading. That hasn't changed, so they still respond in one of these text types: letter, report, journal, speech, interview, and article. On the next slide, you can see, so on these slides, I'll show you some tables now that on the left-hand side shows the current syllabus, the 2024 to 26 syllabus, and on the right-hand side, the changes in the new syllabus. So that's an overview of the reading paper there. What we have done, the major change in this paper, is that we've restructured the paper into 4 questions. So at present it's 3 questions and it's moving to 4 questions, but that's just a restructuring of the paper. It's not about adding additional content to the paper. It's moving things into 4 compulsory questions on the 3 texts, and each question is 20 marks. So the reading load is similar in the paper. It's got a combined length of 1,400 words for the reading texts. On the next slide, I'll just go into some more detail. How you can see the restructure here is that you can see question 1 is still question 1 in the new paper from 2027, and that focuses on comprehension questions. Question 2 from 2027 onwards is the current 1F question. So we've changed question 1F to become question 2, and that focuses on the summary task. And that summary task now has 2 parts to it. So question 2A is the summary question, and question 2B is a new question that asks candidates to respond to test their understanding of attitudes and opinions in the text. So that whole section has moved to be 20 marks. And as you can see on the next slide, we've got an example of how that question looks. So you'll see there at the beginning a very familiar question: according to text B, what are the arguments, etc. This question is taken from the specimen paper. So if you have a look at the specimen paper on the School Support Hub or the main Cambridge website, you will see this question in there. You can see question B, that's the one I want to draw your attention to. There's a new style question in there for 5 marks, and it's asking the candidate to assess the writer's attitude towards the cloning of endangered animals. But that's just to draw your attention to that. On the next slide, you can see what we're calling the new question 3, which is your current question 2. These are still short answer questions. We've slightly changed the format and the style of some of these questions. So on the next slide, I will show you that one thing to draw your attention to here is a change. Can you see on the left-hand side, the current syllabus, where we currently ask candidates to focus on words that are underlined in questions and in paragraphs? On the right-hand side, you can see that those words are now in bold. So this was to help with accessibility and reading of the paper. So that's a minor change there. So words that are currently underlined will become bold in the question papers from 2027 onwards. On the next slide, this is another focus on question 3. So question 2D in the current paper becomes question 3D in the new paper. The wording of the question has changed slightly. So on the next slide, I can show you that. You can see here on the left-hand side is the current question paper. On the right-hand side, the new question paper from 2027. The focus here is, if you can see, in the current assessment, candidates are asked to go back and look at reread paragraphs. So we give them the instruction to reread a particular paragraph, and they go and find it in the insert. From 2027 onwards, we'll produce the paragraph of text in the question paper, so candidates won't need to go back and look for those paragraphs. It will be in the question paper itself. We slightly reduce the amount that candidates write there from 200 to 250 words, and that's to reflect the changes to the marks. So on the next slide, you can see we'll look at question 4 here. Now, question 4 is the extended response to reading, now worth 20 marks. This is still responding to text C. We've slightly again reduced the amount that candidates write, and that's in reflection to the change of marks. the amount that candidates read has slightly been reduced as well, and the instructions on the question paper have been simplified. So if we look at the next slide, you can see an example of that. So on the left-hand side, the current assessment, on the right-hand side, the assessment from 2027 onwards. You can just see there we've slightly condensed how much candidates are reading in the question and how much they actually write during the exam as well. And that's to reflect the change to mark. So that will introduce the question, and they'll get into that a lot quicker. On the next slide, we'll look at directed writing and composition. So paper 2, there are not a lot of changes to this question paper. So section A is still the directed writing. Candidates still use information from text to write their discursive, argumentative, and persuasive speech, letter, or article or report. And section B is still comprehension. On the next slide, what I want to draw your attention to is a change to the directed writing task. So the main change here is that the directed writing task now has 2 parts. It has question 1A and question 1B. Question 1A is a structured question that allows candidates to analyse and evaluate and demonstrate their understanding of the text. So this is aimed at helping their comprehension of the text or texts. We use 1 or 2 texts in this task, as you know, and that's to help them with their understanding of the text before they start the directed writing task. So that's a 5-mark question, and we can see an example on the next slide. So here's an example of question 1A now. So a paragraph of the text from the reading text will be reprinted in the question itself. Candidates will be directed to look at that paragraph of text and in their own words evaluate an attitude or an opinion from the text itself. They'll do that and then they'll move on to the directed writing task, which is very familiar to them. So that's to help them navigate the reading text in the question paper before they start writing. On the next slide, you'll see the composition, and the message here is that it stays the same. So we've not made any changes to the composition tasks. So candidates will still be required to choose from 2 descriptive or 2 narrative titles, and they'll write 1 response to those. On the next slide, just what does this mean for you? Have a look through the new syllabus and the question papers that are available on the School Support Hub and on the Cambridge website. You'll see the changes that we made, a summary in the syllabus to the changes that we've made to the syllabus from 2027 onwards. Hope you can see from the slides that I've whizzed through, but you will have the details sent to you later, that most of the changes are in paper 1. That change to the directed writing task in paper 2. We've updated the marking criteria also throughout the components. So paper 1, paper 2, the portfolio, the coursework portfolio, and the speaking and listening have all had the marking criteria updated, the wording slightly changed there. So do take time to go and have a look at those, because I think it would be really helpful for you to see that detail. Have a look around the School Support Hub, because there are lots of good resources on there and they're being added to all the time. And just some, as you would do normally, select passages to practice reading comprehension with your students, practice writing in different forms with your students, and listen to different types of audio, video clips, podcasts, practice speaking and listening with your students as well in the classroom. And it's really important to use the textbook support to support learning. On this next page, you can see some of our published endorsed resources. So in a short while, Julia is going to talk about our Cambridge resources and go through those with you. But we also have other resources that are endorsed by Cambridge, produced by, for example, Collins, you can see there, and Hatchet Learning. Those links to those resources are on our website. So if you go onto the School Support Hub and have a look, you can see all of the resources that are available to support your teaching of this syllabus.
We've got Julia Fusey, our commissioning editor.
Thank you, Jane. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Fusey, and I'm the commissioning editor for First Language English, and I'm going to talk to you about the teaching and learning support that we are offering. So the School Support Hub is a great way to keep up to date with your subject and the global Cambridge community, and you can use it to get in touch with other Cambridge teachers and experienced examiners through our online discussion forums, as well as finding out more about our professional development courses. So on the next slide, you will see a snapshot of some of the resources available for first language English. So we have a scheme of work which provides medium-term teaching plans. We also offer Resource Plus for first language English, which includes teaching packs, high-quality videos and animations, ready-made lesson plans and quizzes. And we will also have example candidate response available, which will be example candidate work with examiner comments on what candidates did to achieve marks and how they could improve and some common mistakes. Again, this is just a snapshot of all of the available resources on the School Support Hub. So if you haven't already, I really recommend that you go on there and look at what's available to you. So I'm now going to talk to you about our endorsed support from Cambridge. So we are publishing a 6th edition of our IGCSE First Language English. We will have a course book with digital access, and this is publishing this Thursday, so on the 20th of March. We are also providing a workbook with digital access and a digital teacher's resource, which will come bundled with a digital course book and workbook, and all of these are publishing this month. And you're going to be hearing from one of our authors, Helen Rees-Bidder, shortly as well. So for the course book, we have taken a new skills-based approach, splitting the content into 2 parts, part 1 reading, part 2 writing, and it has a more step-by-step scaffolded support. And on the next few slides, you're going to see some of the resources and features that we have. So to support engagement and student progression, we have skills focus at the start of each unit so that students know the specific reading or writing skills that they will cover in the unit, whilst the getting started activity will explore what knowledge students already have, as well as introducing them to concepts that will be covered. And these features help students to understand what they will be learning. We've also included a range of different text types and genres within the coursebook, and we have focused on bringing in a modern and international text choices, and Helen will be talking more about this later on. We do also have video content, and this will provide additional support on different concepts throughout the coursebook, and these videos can be accessed through the digital coursebook through Cambridge Go. We have projects at the end of each unit, and these really allow students to contextualise learning by applying their skills to real-world tasks. And then to help support skills development, we have included annotated sample answers to help students understand the success criteria, and it also encourages students to evaluate their own work. This has just been a snapshot of the coursebook, and Helen will be exploring more features later on as well. So now I'm going to talk to you about the workbook. And the workbook follows the same structure as the coursebook, so this allows for consolidation of skill development. It contains additional language and grammar support, as well as further opportunities for students to answer additional practice questions. So let's take a quick look inside. The workbook is write-in and contains learning intentions at the start of each unit, which explains what students will be learning, as well as review exercises, which bring together skills learnt in the corresponding coursebook unit. The exercises throughout let students practice their reading and writing skills. And then similar to the coursebook, we have a reading practice unit and a writing practice unit. This provides further opportunity for students to practice responding to the type of tasks required in their assessment. We also have a brand new teacher's resource, which, similar to the coursebook, is publishing this Thursday on the 20th of March. And as mentioned, it will also come with access to the digital coursebook and digital workbook. The teacher resource also follows the same structure of the coursebook and workbook, allowing for ease of planning. And on the next few slides, you'll take a look and see what's inside. So each unit has a learning plan, which includes the learning intentions, success criteria, and the assessment objectives that will be covered within that unit. Each unit also contains language support, which contains information to help you present a specific language or grammar support within the unit. And this feature especially focuses on the needs of students with English as an additional language. Each unit also includes lots of ideas to help you plan your lessons, including starter activity ideas, main teaching ideas, and plenaries, which also relate to the coursebook and workbook. It also provides ideas for assessment as well as differentiation ideas to support or challenge your students. The digital teachers resource also comes with lots of additional downloadable material, including worksheets to support language as well as PowerPoint presentations. And finally, you can get access to end of unit tests, which you can use to assess students' understanding of the unit content. We do have executive previews available for our new endorsed resources, so please do contact your local sales representative for more information on this. We also have several professional development opportunities for Cambridge IGCSE First Language English. The best place to find what we have coming up is our professional development calendar on the website. You can filter by IGCSE and First Language English to browse a list of upcoming courses. Please be aware that some of these will be more for the current syllabus, as this still has 2 years of the exam series to go, but we will be adding new courses soon. On the slide, you can see some examples of the type of courses that we have available. We have introduction courses, which are strongly recommended for teachers who are new to Cambridge or a specific qualification. Marking workshops enable teachers to engage with recent candidate responses to build confidence in their understanding of the assessment criteria. We also have focus on assessment courses for teachers who want to understand the assessment of the syllabus in greater depth, as well as focus on teaching courses, which are for teachers who wish to explore a specific area of teaching and learning within the syllabus. These courses are recommended for teachers with at least 1 year experience teaching Cambridge programmes. All of these different courses can either be online or face-to-face depending, so please do look at this before booking, or do get in touch with us if you have any questions. Thank you, and I'm now going to hand over to Helen.
Thank you so much, Julia. It's great to see that overview from you. I'm now going to take you through the course book in particular and the workbook, really to tell you from the author perspective what we were trying to do and how I think, as somebody who has also taught first language English for a number of years, how I think this course book will really help you in your teaching of the revised syllabus. So yeah, if I could have my first slide, please. Thank you. So first of all, looking at the coursebook structure, this has been changed completely from the 5th edition. You'll see now that it's split into 2 parts. Part 1 is reading and part 2 is writing. And you'll see that the way that the units have been structured is very much to relate to the particular sections of the examination papers. So Unit 1 is a general introduction to the kinds of reading skills and strategies that your students will need to develop. Unit 2 is reading for comprehension. Unit 3, summary writing. Unit 4, writer's effects. Unit 5, extended response to reading. Then Unit 6 is a complete practice paper, so another specimen paper in effect for you. The same with part 2, where we have writing, where we have the general kind of writing skills that are going to be necessary for this syllabus. And then Unit 8, directed writing, Unit 9, descriptive writing, Unit 10, narrative writing, then Unit 11 is a practice paper for paper 2. So we hope you will find that structure really effective, because it actually constructs and develops the skills that are necessary for each question type in the examination. And obviously we are using the 2027 syllabus for all of the practice questions. So the new questions types that are on the exams are fully covered in this course book. So if I could have the next slide. I just wanted to really show you the design. I know Julia's shown you some bits of it already, but this is the first 3 pages of the unit on writer's effects. So I just wanted to sort of show you how it starts off with, you know, working out meanings of words in context, and you can see the way that we put in activities, different types of activities, getting them to look really closely at language. We start off by meanings in context. We give a very clear idea of what we actually mean by writer's effects, what we're looking at. You can see that key terms are explained fully. And you can also see that writing tips are given in terms of the kinds of writing style they should be using when they approach questions on writer's effects. So it's a very sort of logical structure. We really start constructing the skills right from the outset, building on what they may have done in checkpoint and starting at the kind of beginning of their IGCSE course so that we can build and structure the skills carefully. So next slide, please. So the features, I just wanted to draw your attention to the features. All of these are colour coded, so these boxes sort of appear throughout the units. Learning intentions are at the start of every unit, the skills focus, the getting started activity is a chance for you as a teacher to assess their prior knowledge. What do they already know here? Where's your starting point with this class? Key terms, key vocabulary appears in every unit, and it's obviously the vocabulary that is specific to what is being covered in that unit. We look at command words very closely because obviously those are very important because they give the students a real kind of sense of what a question is asking them to do, and we teach them to understand the command words and their demands. Reading tips, writing tips, speaking and listening tips appear throughout the course book. We also have language focus, and this is really useful in the reading section particularly because it tends to focus on literary terminology and how they can use it in their responses, and also grammar and language topics. We have lots of reflection activities because obviously the approach to the Cambridge curriculum should always be reflective learners. That's our student profile. So we try to get students to reflect on their learning so that they themselves can have a kind of metacognitive approach to their learning. They can think about, well, what can I already do? What do I need to improve? What am I struggling with? And we also have a project in each unit so that you can do some collaborative group work where you're really getting the students to think about what skills have we developed during this unit, and you give them a project so that they actually have to apply those skills in a kind of real life context. And what we try to do with those projects is, you know, quite often there will be speaking and listening involved, there will always be collaborative activities involved, and they will give them a sense of ownership over their work, but it's all about applying the skills in a real life context. So yes, next slide, please. So text, Julia's already mentioned that we've tried to include really appropriate and relevant texts. We've taken text from a variety of sources, including novels, short stories, newspaper and online articles. We have biographical writing, travel writing, information books, articles. We've sourced text from a variety of cultures as well. And one of the things we've tried to do with the topics that the texts cover is that they are topics that will build students' cultural capital. They will help you as teachers build up your students' knowledge of the kinds of topics and themes that tend to come up on in the unseen text on the examination, and also topics that will allow them to draw knowledge from other subjects such as history or geography or global perspectives, or English literature, so that they're kind of like drawing together the knowledge they have, and it'll also enable them to build vocabulary, and we often have kind of building vocabulary tasks. So we've been very conscious of the texts that we've chosen. They've been chosen very deliberately to try to kind of really expand student experience and to offer you as teachers really good quality resources, and also resources that will really help you develop the skills necessary for the examinations. So next slide, please. So you can see here, these are some examples. Mongolia on a dirt bike. I've done training in Ulaanbaatar, which was great fun. Bollywood. Here we've got something about working from home. So that's to show the kind of that we've updated text to give them a modern flavour. So we're looking at kind of like social things that perhaps are quite recent. There's a text there on Oman, a piece of travel writing text about the joys of travelling to Oman, which again, we have lots of centres in Oman who do 0500. And you'll see from the Hot House, Heart of the Jungle, Adrian Phillips, we've got a section there. And from The Island at the End of Everything by Kiran Hargreave, we've got a section there. We're also using some Anita Desai, all sorts of writers from all around the world for our literary text. So hopefully that gives you a little flavour of the kind of text we're using. So next slide, please. So practice questions. Every unit has a set of practice questions for the type of questions and tasks covered in that unit. So this is the practice question at the end of Unit 4, which is our Writers' Effects unit. And you can see the questions are completely reflective of the way they are in the newly developed syllabus. So you can see our question 1, which is a similar question type to one we already have, but instead of 4 subsections, it now only has 2, where they have to find a corresponding word or phrase in the text. And you can see question B is our bolded 3 words that they have to explain the meanings of in context. And you can see the way our current question 2D has now been split into 2 parts, with a 5-mark question where they are given the section of text they have to look at in the question, which I think they will find really helpful. And now the 10-mark question, which is only based on 1 paragraph. And again, they are given the section of text in the question. And I think students are going to find that really helpful because it's right there in front of them. They can't choose phrases from the wrong paragraph because the paragraph is there for them. So we're hoping that this new structure of what was question 2A and B, C and D is now going to be really, really helpful for them. And as you can see, you've got good practice questions, good quality practice questions at the end of every unit, which is giving you lots more questions outside the specimen materials. So next slide, please. And again, I'm giving you some more examples of the new style questions. So you can see according to text A, what makes travelling and learning exciting but challenging? That's a summary question. But then part B, assess the writer's attitude to arriving in new places alone. Use 3 details from text A to support your answer. And this is our new 5-mark question where they have to look at the writer's attitude to something. So again, plenty of opportunities here to practice these new style questions. And the same where we've got question 1, reading the text, for 5 marks, and then part B, which is our directed writing task. So this is our paper 2 new style question, where they're given a little extract from one of the reading texts and they're asked to evaluate the writer's attitude. And they have to give details from the text to justify their answer. But again, the text is given in the question, which I think candidates will find very, very helpful. And there we've got our comprehension practice questions, which again follow the question format on the examination paper and also the marks allocation from the examination paper and give them further practice. And these are all end of unit questions. So, and as well as that, you obviously also have the full practice paper in Unit 6 and Unit 11. So next slide, please. So the other thing we've tried to do in the textbook, again, with the Cambridge approach to teaching and learning, we're trying to use assessment for learning strategies and incorporate tasks which will enable you to do that in your classroom. So here, for example, we've got 2 modelled responses, and these are from the extended response to reading, Unit 5. So we've got 2 responses, which are a letter to a sister based on the reading text, and we've given them 13 teacher feedback comments. They, in pairs or groups, have to decide which comment they would apply to which of these responses. And it's a way of making them see the difference in quality in the responses, the sorts of feedback that they will get to help them improve their responses. And it's a very kind of collaborative, active learning activity, rather than saying this is a good answer, this is a poor answer, or this is weaker than this, because they've actually got to look at the answers themselves, decide which of these comments apply to which answer and why. And through doing that, it actually makes them, through that active learning task, consider, well, what are the good qualities of the answer? What does a good answer look like and why? And it makes them really start to understand that, what they're being asked to do, why they're being asked to do it. So on the next slide, I've got another example. So here again, we've got 3 responses this time. And here, this is a writer's effects task. And here we've given them a checklist of success criteria. and also, potential ways that students can kind of lose marks here. And they've got to use the checklist in order, again, as a collaborative activity, to look at the 3 responses and decide which is the most successful, which is the second most successful, and which is the third in place. So again, it's a good active learning collaborative activity that will help them start looking at, well, what am I being asked to do in a writer's effects question, and what does success look like here? So next slide, please. So this is something I wanted to show you about the way that we've structured each unit to construct the learning. Now, each of these red titles is a section of the unit, and this is the unit for summary writing. So obviously in between each of these red titles, you've got a couple of pages of activities and questions for the students. But this is the way we've actually structured it. So the first thing is forming that overview. So they're asked to read an unseen text, and they need to form an overview to decide, well, what is the text about? What text type is this? What's the purpose of the text? So you're just doing that. So there are some activities following that about how you form an overview. The next section goes on to, well, how do we identify main points in a text? And this considers that a change in the question could change what a main point is. So the main points of the text are not concrete, they're according to the question they're answering, because the focus of the question decides what the main points are, rather than the text itself. So we have some exercises and ideas to show them how you can differentiate between a main point, for example, and an example in the text, or a detail in the text that supports a main point. We then go on to look at, well, how do we then reorganize and synthesize the ideas once we've picked out the main points? We then go on to looking at, well, how do you use your own words in a summary with some good advice? They don't have to find synonyms for every word, and they're not expected to do that. What they're expected to do is not copy whole phrases and sentences. So remodeling the language of the text, putting it in a different order is important. Synthesizing similar points, avoiding repetition, but how to use own words. We have quite a lot of information, and again, activities on how you can effectively remodel a text so that you're not copying or lifting. We've then got a section on the correct register and style in summary writing, that even if the text you're basing your summary on is written in a very lively, persuasive tone, the summary isn't. The summary is written in quite a neutral, plain tone. We've got the importance of length, which is one of the questions we were asked about earlier, and it gives guidance about why that 120 words is important and what might happen. We've also got some examples of student answers which go over length, and also some which go under length, so they can see how that has an impact on how successful it is. We've got a section on how to vary your sentence structures so that you're writing a fluent summary and using connectives, not overusing them, using them effectively. So you can see how we are constructing. We start off with the overview, then the main points, then how we organise and synthesise ideas, then how we actually write it, and we go through the various things they need to consider. So every unit is like this in terms of construction of skills. So can I have the next slide, please? And also in the summary, we've really focused on planning, because even though they don't need to include a plan, we don't have a plan that's marked, the best summaries are planned. So we've really emphasised the importance of spending time planning a summary, and we've given some examples of the way students can plan, the way students can look at synthesising points together, the way students can spot repetition. And we've got a little exercise where they're given a plan but not the text, and they have to write a summary purely from the plan. So lots of tips for them about writing an effective summary there. So next slide, please. So again, building skills. This is how we build the skills in the Writer's Effects unit. And again, in between each of these red titles is lots of pages of activities and things. But we start off with Writer's Effects of, well, how do we explain words in context? Because that's a really important stepping stone to explaining the effects of those words. We then look at, well, what do we mean by writer's effects? And we give examples of how language works. It doesn't have to be complicated language. It can be simple language used in an interesting, figurative way. Then we look at moving from meanings to effects. So how do we actually kind of link the two? Connotations, emotive language, sensory language. We then look at strategies like zooming or the onion strategy, as actually thinking about the words and the depths of words. So we go on to strategies at the end of the unit. So again, it's that constructing of skills. Because it's really important that they understand the importance of meanings before they move on to effects, because often the meanings unlock the effect. So next slide, please. So understanding questions, we've got a lot here. We've got a Unit 5 question where we've actually coded it so that they can see exactly what information in this question is crucial to them planning a successful answer. So you can see on that getting started, we give them the code for the first task, but the second task, they've got to decide it for themselves. So we get them to apply what they've learned. And you'll see here with a directed writing task, unpicking the task before you plan what does this invite you to do. So in every unit, again, we really do try to get them kind of like understanding what questions are asking them to do and how to pre-read, how to read a question really carefully so they know what they're being asked to do in their answer. And we do that also with the more straightforward comprehension questions as well, through our looking at command words very closely and what are they actually asking you to do, the importance of looking at the number of marks allocated to a question in order to know how many points you've got to make. So we're doing a lot of kind of exam technique, unpicking questions and what are questions asking you to do. So next slide, please. So we also, in every unit, have reflection and self-assessment. And again, as I said, the Cambridge Learner profile, reflective learning is very important. So we get them at certain times to kind of think about, well, what have I learned? What do I feel confident about? What do I feel less confident about? And it's a way of getting them to go back and consolidate what they've learned. At the end of each unit, there's a self-assessment grid. Now, those are there for the students as a metacognitive kind of strategy, but they're also really helpful for the teachers, because if you actually look at the whole class's self-assessment, you'll be able to see where they're confident, where they're perhaps not so confident, how it can inform your planning, as to what you need to go back and perhaps reconsolidate. So I think these are really helpful for students, but they're also really helpful for teachers, so that you can see it at a glance what students are happy with and what students feel they need more support in. So next slide, please. So I'm going to just quickly show you how the workbook links to the course book. You'll see that the units are identical and the structure of the units are identical. And again, each unit has an exam style practice question at the end, and unit 6 and 11 give you 2 full exam papers where they are completely modelled on the new developed syllabus. So basically what you're getting in the workbook is more material, but the emphasis of the workbook is far more on independent learning. So very useful for things like homeworks, you know, where you might have done something using the course book in a lesson, and then you say, right, in your workbook, I want you to look at unit 2, you know, page so-and-so, and I want you to complete the task there. And that will kind of show you whether they've understood and developed the skills that you covered in that lesson. So it's much more emphasis on independent, less collaborative in the workbook, because the idea is it's going to be students working alone on things. But they also have space to write in the workbook, which they don't in the course book. So it's a really good opportunity for you to use it to set homeworks and things. And it does follow the structure exactly. So it's consolidating, developing, reminding, practice opportunities, very much in the workbook. So next slide, please. So again, this is comparing the workbook across to the course book. So on the left here, we've got a section from the course book about register and style in summary writing and reminding them. And this extension activity in the workbook is where somebody has written a summary and the style is not right. So we're asking them to rewrite that in a more formal and neutral tone. So you can see the link to the course book, the language focus there on formality, and there's an exercise in the workbook that builds on that by getting them to change a rather lively summary style into a more formal neutral tone. So it just shows you those links. So next slide, please. And further skill development for the new style questions. You can see here there's a little exercise in the workbook about emotive language and writer's attitude. So these aren't exam style questions, these are exploring a text and looking at how language conveys the writer's attitude, which is practice skill development for the new style question where they have to comment on the writer's attitude. And again, language focus here, choosing synonyms, where they have to circle the best synonym to fit into a sentence. And this is all building up on the work that we do in the course book about synonyms, about choosing appropriate synonyms, and about nuanced language, which of course is so important to those questions in 2A and 2B, the actual nuance of a word. So next slide, please. And here's further examples of the new style questions that appear in the workbook. So you can see, assess the writer's attitude towards developing responsibility and good manners in young people. What's the writer's attitude towards the current regulations for using drones? Using your own word, evaluate the writer's attitude towards studying abroad. Using your own words, what the writer suggests about Culfie's life in the phrase. And that's the new 3-mark question where they're given one phrase to explain. And we've got our 5-mark question where they're given an extract and they have to choose one example from the extract. So all of those are further examples of the new style questions in the workbook. So between them, the course book and the workbook are going to give you a wealth of material on these new style questions in the examination.
Thank you so much. And thank you also to everyone for attending today and your engagement and saying how wonderful the resources look. As I've mentioned, a lot of teacher research has been done to really capture what you want in the classroom. So thank you so much for your positive comments.